Story. It wasn't too long until Suge dropped out of school and was back in LA. And at that point, you think that clearly Suge Knight's football career was over, but turns out during the late 80s, the NFL was actually going through a crisis. Now, players were on strike after the start of the 87 season because they demanded more money. And of course, owners didn't believe the players until they had to start scrambling for a roster for the season to go on. And I mean, desperate times call for desperate measures, which means they were calling up undrafted players, former college players, the neighbor, the cats, and the dogs, anyone and everyone to replace the players refusing to play in the season. And of course, guess who else got the phone call? That's right, Suge Knight himself. So what looked like to be a thing of the past, a football career that just tanked due to nothing else but Suge himself, Suge got another chance to really take this thing seriously in the big leagues. Well, at least that's what he thought. Amidst the protests, the replacement players were treated like crap by the contract players. Eggs being thrown, booed, the whole nine. And really, Suge ended up only playing 2 official games as an LA Ram and not really making a huge dent in terms of stats. And well, the strike lasted about 24 days until things went back to at least semi-normal. And at that point, in terms of football, it was over for Suge, done, finished, really a thing of the past. It was at this point that the gangster era of Suge started to take shape, as if some sort of shift within Suge started happening. I mean, he had instances of troublemaking before, like in high school shaking down white students, or reselling books in college as a cash grab. But nothing really stand out to signal that Suge would be a future felon, other than the fact that it's been rumored that Suge was a drug dealer back in his UNLV days. So other than that, from the outside looking in, as far as faculty, coaches, etc., he seemed to be alright. So by 1987, when he's officially done with football, it didn't take him too long to get into trouble. And the first time we actually really see him get into trouble with the law, this was in October of that same year. He got into multiple arguments with his then girlfriend, Sharitha Golden. Alleged threats were made, which ultimately led her to get a restraining order against him. She would then have him arrested on a domestic assault charge because they got into another argument while they're in Sharitha's mother's driveway, in which he grabbed her by the hair and took a pair of scissors and cut off her ponytail. Weird, I know, but Sharitha has recounted this incident and essentially says, and this is not verbatim, that because he liked her hair so much, he thought by cutting it off, other men wouldn't dare look at her anymore because he suspected her of entertaining other men at the time. He had the "if I can't have you, nobody can" attitude. However, what's even weirder is that she still ended up marrying him 2 years later, but I digress. But this wasn't the end of Suge's shenanigans. On Halloween night, which was just 2 weeks later after the chopping of the hair incident, Suge was again arrested, but this time it was because he ended up shooting his friend in Vegas, Ricky Crockett. Now they had a heated exchange and he just ended up popping him, once in the leg and once in the wrist, then attempted to make an escape, stealing his car, a Nissan Maxima, according to Randall Sullivan, the author of Labyrinth. But Suge only got a slap on the wrist for it. Instead of it being a felony charge, he was able to get it down to a misdemeanor. He was very lucky as he got away with only a $1,000 fine and a couple years probation, and this was mainly because of his reputation as a star athlete. It was also reported that allegedly the 49ers had made him an offer around this time in '87, but because of the situation, they wanted no parts. Now don't quote me on this because I'm not 100% sure if that's true, but let's go with it. Now that football was completely out of the picture, as I have mentioned a little earlier, Suge was working as a bouncer for the Cotton Club in Vegas. And after his football career, that's what he was doing for the next couple of years, working as a bouncer for various clubs and music venues in LA. By this time in 1988, he already had an interest in getting into the music industry, and this would be his first step. And in the process, he met Bobby Brown, which would change his trajectory forever. Now, Suge met Bobby Brown at an after party and basically shielded him away from crazy fans. And then faster than you could say supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, Suge became Bobby Brown's bodyguard. And let's just say with his size, intimidating demeanor, and stature, he was very good at it, and I'm pretty sure Bobby himself could attest to that. And progressively, he started getting more and more on the music business side. Now, Suge Knight himself credits a lot of his knowledge on the music business side being Bobby's bodyguard. After all, he would hear and see everything going on behind the scenes. As an example, he learned that writers, especially at that time, weren't getting their just due publishing money and were literally making pennies for their work. And that became a lane for him in the music business to make sure that artists were signing the right contracts and were getting paid their worth. Suge Knight, the manager, and the introduction to the DOC and Dr. Dre. Now, through Suge's new venture of artist management, he would sign prominent West Coast artists like Mario Chocolate Johnson, the DOC, and DJ Quick. And through the DOC, Suge met Dr. Dre. At the time, the DOC was a close affiliate and collaborator to NWA. For context, the DOC was originally from Texas and had moved to LA to work with Dr. Dre and the rest of NWA. Dr. Dre had first heard of the DOC, who went by Doc T at the time, through the group Fila Fresh Crew, joined by two other members, Fresh K and Dr. Rock. They ended up landing a spot on the NWA and a Posse compilation album, and that was because Dr. Rock's connection to Dr. Dre. Dr. Rock was a DJ for the world-class Wrecking Crew for a short period of time, which Dr. Dre and DJ Yella from NWA were previously a part of. Soon after the Fila Fresh Crew's placement on a compilation project, they split up, and Doc T was now solo. Now fast forward, he moves to LA living with Dr. Dre, and he becomes an unofficial NWA member, changing his name to the DOC, which is an abbreviation for Dallas Oak Cliff, his hometown, to align himself with the group, with obviously NWA standing for N-words with attitude. And he wrote songs for Eazy-E and greatly contributed to projects for the group like Straight Outta Compton, and that's basically all to say that the DOC had a very strong relationship with Dr. Dre at the time. Now, how Suge met the DOC was through LA Dre. This was around the time that the DOC was already signed to Ruthless Records, formed by Eazy-E and Jerry Heller, and released his debut album No One Could Do It Better, which was doing big numbers, becoming certified gold after only 3 months of its release in 1989.
And when my record came out and it really started doing well, so quick, you know, and Funky Enough was #1 on the radio in California, up and down the whole coast.
The album was #1 for 2 weeks straight, right?
Yeah. So I was on one. I ain't gonna even lie to you.
Yeah.
Shit. I would walk into these clubs, and this when I had Suge with me. This when me and Suge first started hanging out. Yeah. And so
y'all met during that time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. His brother, the guy he called his brother's name is L.A. Dre.
Okay.
Keyboard player.
Okay.
And so I knew L.A. Dre from Texas.
Yeah.
And I met Suge through L.A. Dre, and just started hanging out with him. At 19, 20 years old, he was taking me to clubs and shit. I wasn't supposed to be.
He was older?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. And he had a California, he understood the shit, he knew where to go.
Yeah.
And I was in there, you know what I mean? And when I get that all in me, no telling what I do.
After the success of the DOC's album in 1989, 5 months later to be exact, he was involved in a near-fatal accident, driving home drunk and high after partying and falling asleep at the wheel. And as a sidebar, this was around the time that he was basically going wild partying to the extremes every night. And Suge Knight was essentially acting as a bodyguard and bailing him out.